Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Courtney Grayson, a creative, entrepreneur, natural hair stylist, and loctician. Over here on my side of YouTube, you will find expert information on how to care for your locks and other lifestyle content. As you can tell by the title of the video, we're going to be talking about alternative lock methods. In my last lock hair information video, I talked about the difference between twists and coils when starting your locks, and a lot of you mentioned that you are considering other methods. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about 4 different methods. The first is plaits, the second will be interlocks, the third will be instant locks, and then lastly we'll talk about loc extensions. So yeah, let's hop right into plaits. Plaits are obviously made by braiding the hair. The thing about plaits is that they typically will not expand much because you're braiding it. A lot of people recommend to braid it loosely so that it does have space to expand. But typically when people are braiding, you braid pretty tight because you want it to kind of look very seamless and neat. And so what I've seen typically is that locks started with plaits. If you are to Google them or look them up, I'll also put some on the screen. They're also usually pretty small because of that reason, very similar to interlocks, which I'll be talking about next, is that they stay pretty small because of how they were started. If you watch my last video, I talk about your locks expanding with like coils and two-strand twists when you go to wash it and everything. With plaits, they don't expand as much. Now, your hair is just naturally going to expand, so it'll expand as much as it can, but for the most part, they will not expand that much. I personally have not seen any locks started with braids that are big or kind of chunky. I'm sure there's someone out there that's probably done it before, but from my experience, they're typically pretty small, very similar to micro locks or sister locks. They do take a little longer to mature. Typically, you'll see that braid pattern for a really long time. From what I've seen, I actually may have only maintenance braid locks about 1 time, but I definitely have done some research to prepare for this video. And what I've seen is that typically that braid lock pattern stays for about a year or so before you start to see that go away as your frizz starts to happen and you begin wrapping it and stuff like that. So if this is something that you are considering, just keep in mind that that braid pattern will be there and they won't look like very mature locks pretty fast. So this is just a process that you have to go through. Now, the things that I've mentioned probably may seem like cons to some people, but there are some pros to getting braid locks, and there is a reason why a lot of people get them. So the first that I'll mention is that you tend to see your length a lot faster. Now, if you imagine when you twist your hair versus when you braid it, your hair tends to look longer. That's why a lot of times when I had loose hair, I would do braid outs instead of twist outs. So when you braid your hair, you typically are able to see the length a lot faster. So if you have long hair already and you want to kind of start with longer locks, braids might be the choice for you, as well as like interlocks, which I'll talk about next. But you typically see your length a lot more. Now, obviously there is shrinkage that will happen, so some of it will go up, but compared to twist and coils, you'll definitely see your length a lot faster. You'll have a lot less bunching as seen with other methods, and so again, that's why you'll see your length a lot faster. Another pro that a lot of people love about braid locks is that you can pretty much wash your hair immediately. Because your hair is plaited and it's not really going nowhere, there's not a huge chance that it'll unravel, especially if you have type 4 hair. And so you're able to wash your hair immediately, and for some people that's kind of like a no-brainer and a deal breaker for them. They want to wash their hair immediately, as opposed to the other methods where you typically have to wait about 4 weeks or so to wash your hair. With braid locks, you can pretty much wash it immediately and not really worry about any issues happening. Another thing is that they can be interlocked or palm rolled. So for the most part, I see braid locks being interlocked because interlocking pretty much creates that same kind of look. I definitely have an entire video specifically dedicated to interlocking, and again, I'm going to talk about interlocking in a second, but you are able to interlock them or palm roll. When you interlock from the root, it pretty much looks like a braid already. So as you interlock braid locks, you continue to keep that very consistent look, and also it keeps the shape the same as well. It's definitely possible for you to palm roll. Obviously you will end up having to kind of wait a little bit for your growth to happen before you're able to palm roll, but it's definitely possible to palm roll braid locks. You will notice that as your roots start to grow out and you continue palm rolling, your hair will expand in those areas because it's not interlocked or braided, and so you might have thicker locks towards the root as they grow and kind of thinner locks towards the end. So that's one thing to consider, but you're definitely able to kind of switch over to palm roll if you ever choose to, but you might have a different look, and that's okay for some people. But the next one I'm going to talk about is interlocks. And again, I am going to plug my interlocking 101 video. I went on a full rundown of everything that I know about interlocking. You can go ahead and hit there if that's something that you're considering, or if you're wondering how it would do with your hair. I give so many tips to help you in choosing if interlocking is the right way for you to go. But as far as interlocks, these are locks that have been interlocked from the root to the tip. So it will look very similar to braid locks. A lot of times these are a little bit skinnier, so people who get interlocks are pretty much, from what I've seen, they're very close to micro locks, if not like sister locks. And actually sister locks are interlocks. They're interlocked from root to tip, and they pretty much have a lot of the same qualities as plaits. For instance, you can wash them immediately. You will see a lot of that length and everything like that. You're going to see that braid pattern for a really long time, because interlocks pretty much resemble plaits, except for it'll probably take a little longer to do interlocks because you're using that tool and you do have to go from root to tip, as opposed to being able to kind of plait pretty fast going down. Both methods definitely take a lot longer than like two-strand twists or coils, but I would say that interlocks is, from what I've seen, one of the more time-consuming methods of starting lock. You will use an interlock tool. There are a couple different tools that you can use. And yeah, there's pretty much little to no expanding when it comes to interlocks, because with that tool, you're pretty much pulling it tight every time. You're not really able to change the tightness of it, because that tool is going to pull it tight and make sure that it's pretty slim, so you won't see too much expanding. So if you are looking to get micro locks, or sister locks, or just small locks in general, interlocks might be for you, because they will not expand. They do take a long time for that braid pattern to go away, just like plaits. And yeah, I mean, pretty much everything about interlocks is very similar to what plaits are. Just plaits, you might have a little bit more frizz or a little bit more expanding than you will with interlocks, but everything else is pretty much the same. Next, I'm going to be talking about instant locks, which is all the rave right now. Between the last two, instant locks and Loc Extensions, they are becoming very, very, very popular. Instant locks are pretty much exactly what they sound like. You are using a tool, a crochet needle, in order to create a lock immediately. Most people are going through this 6-month, 7-month, 8-month to a year process to finally achieve mature locks, whereas people who are starting with instant locks walk out of their first appointment with locks that look very mature. For some people, going through that long process is just not something that they want to do. It's not something that's conducive to their lifestyle. And so this is a method that a lot of people choose for that reason. You are basically using that crochet needle to tangle the hair on itself. When we are allowing hair to lock, traditionally, we use those months and all that time for the hair to tangle on itself, whereas with the crochet needle, you're artificially creating those tangles. There's typically some back combing involved, so you'll see some length go away. If you do kind of have shoulder length hair, you'll probably see your locks probably start around here, because you do have to back comb the hair to make whatever thickness that you need of that lock. I know that for stylists, I believe it makes it much easier to back comb and kind of create the thickness of whatever lock size you want. And yeah, with instant locks, you are kind of able to do whatever size you want. So I haven't seen a whole lot of instant locks that are really small, but it's definitely possible. And I've definitely seen instant locks as big as like wicks, for example. The method is very versatile when it comes to choosing a different size for your locks. Now, with instant locks, I do recommend that you go to someone who is very skilled and experienced in this, because when you're looking to get different sizes, you want someone who's going to be able to kind of look at your hair texture, look at your density, look at the size that you want, and be able to create the perfect lock to part ratio for down the line. So you definitely don't want really small locks, but then there's a whole lot of back combing involved, and now you have these heavy locks on these very small parts that can definitely create a lot of issues down the line when it comes to like thinning and just having too much tension on your scalp. So you want to go to someone who's very skilled in this process, or at least if you're doing it yourself, do a whole lot of research. Make sure that you part your hair completely before you start to instant lock, just to make sure that you kind of have everything set up and that you're not getting to like the end of doing your hair and you're realizing like you made this huge issue. Because with instant locks, as you're using that crochet needle, it's definitely going to be a lot harder to remove. And yeah, you want to make sure that you do it correctly the first time. They will not expand at all unless you don't really fully crochet it. So I've seen some people halfway crochet it, where they're kind of like going down the lock to create a shape but not necessarily a full mature lock. If you go with that method where you're not fully instant locking or fully crocheting it, you still allow your hair to kind of expand in some ways and still give some of that like starter lock journey, and then over time allow your hair to naturally do the rest of the work. If you are getting the crochet to the point where it looks like a full mature lock immediately, your hair will not expand. Obviously, as your roots grow out, it'll expand some, but your hair is not going to expand after you've crocheted it to be a mature lock. I personally would not recommend crocheting all the way to the root. You definitely want to leave about an inch or two of space from your root with like loose hair so that you're able to like retwist it and wash your scalp and stuff like that. A lot of times if you are crocheting all the way to the root immediately, it could create too much tension and you might start to see some breakage. So I would definitely leave just a little bit from the root so that as you start to retwist, you kind of have a really good foundation and some space in order to actually retwist. They are pretty stiff in the beginning from what I've seen, so a lot of times people will get off the chair and their hair is kind of like sticking straight out. Over time, they'll obviously become a lot more malleable when you are styling them and just wetting them and stuff like that, but they are pretty stiff in the beginning. Most people actually get a style the first time they get them. Instant locks definitely still go through a maturation process, but it's just much faster. So your hair is still going to be pretty frizzy. The process of maintaining that and reducing that frizz goes much faster than with traditional locks. Another reason why people really love instant locks, just like interlocks and plaits, is that you can wash your hair pretty much immediately. Most stylists actually do the instant locks on like dry hair, or I was going to say dirty hair, but it's really just like hair that has been washed yet. So yeah, I guess dirty hair. They typically allow you to come in, they'll do the instant locks and then proceed to wash your hair and retwist it, so that it's like you're creating the lock and then you're actually performing that first retwist in the same sitting. And so yeah, with instant locks you're pretty much able to wash them immediately. Just like the other two, you won't have that much shrinkage because you are literally creating the lock and the length as you go. There's not much hair to shrink. Okay, that's all I have for instant locks. If you have any questions about the first three that I talked about, definitely leave them down below. And then I just have one more to talk about, which will be lock extensions. This one is super popular right now. I've been seeing a lot of people in my area, specifically in the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. A lot of people are getting lock extensions. So many people are asking me to do them. Anything that involves using the crochet needle is not a service that I personally can do because I have tendonitis. Oh, TMI, a whole nother story for another day. But it's not a service that I can perform without pain. But there are a lot of skilled people out here doing lock extensions and they are beautiful. With lock extensions, you're pretty much creating a mature lock from the beginning. With lock extensions, you can either use like loose hair, loose virgin hair, or synthetic hair, whatever the case may be. You can use loose hair to actually create a lock from scratch, or you can buy extensions that have already been pre-made. You can find them pretty much anywhere, and you would attach that to your hair. Either way, you're adding hair in order to lengthen your hair. Some people lengthen their hair just a few inches, while others want mid-back locks immediately. I would say if you were to get lock extensions, you'll probably need at least about 4 inches of hair or so that they can crochet some of your actual hair and then also be able to crochet the lock or the hair to your hair as well. So one thing to keep in mind when you're getting lock extensions is the length of your hair, the condition of your scalp, the condition of your hair, the density of your hair, and the density and condition of the hair or the locks that you will be adding to your hair. What you don't want is to have very fine hair and then you're adding like thick locks to your hair. If you can imagine, that just creates a recipe for disaster, a recipe for way more tension on your scalp than needs to be there. You're adding extensions to your hair, which will be weight. A lot of them are not super heavy, but it can be. And so just go to someone who can, again, foresee what your hair is going to look like down the line, what your locks are going to look like down the line, and give you a great lock to part ratio so that those lock extensions have a really solid foundation to sit on. And this is also very important because lock extensions can tend to kind of like fall and slide over time. So you don't want your lock extensions being so heavy that they continue to fall and actually slip and come apart from your hair. That is one thing that's very common amongst them. So you might just go ahead and manage your expectations and just realize that maybe a few of them will kind of come out, especially towards the beginning. But just keep those, hold them, take them back to your loctician or reinstall them. And this is something that you might have to continue to do until one day it just sticks. The last thing that I'll mention about lock extensions is that they should be styled, especially for the first few months until your hair really starts to tangle with the locked hair. You are trying to force your hair to join with other hair. Be patient and give it some time to really lock together and kind of form one solid lock. It is a really good practice to keep them styled in the beginning, whether it's just two-strand twists if you want to see some of their length, or actually putting them in a like barrel twist or something like that. But that will help just keep them in place and not pull on them too much, or not, you know, create any tension that will allow them to pull apart and actually separate from here, because you want them to join together. I know I just kind of went through a whole lot of information like most of my videos, but I hope that this was helpful. If there's any other method, I can't really think of any other methods that I may have missed. If there is one, definitely mention it below. If I don't already know about it, I'll do some research to bring more information to you all. If you have any extra questions or anything that I missed, definitely leave that below. And I thank you all so much for watching and for getting me to almost 15,000 followers. Maybe by the time this video goes up, I'll be at 15,000, and my heart is so warm. As always, thank you so much for your support. So real quick, I want to use this time to give you all a very special announcement, y'all. When I say I am so happy to finally be able to say this, many of you have been asking about my hair products that I mentioned in some of my videos from last year. Now, at that time, I definitely was still selling them, and that's why it was great for me to still talk about them. As some of you know who have gone over to Instagram, our Instagram page, and seen the video where I've talked about my journey and why I decided to take a break, I needed a mental health break. So I'll get more into detail in future videos about why I really needed the mental health break. But I just got overwhelmed managing, doing YouTube, managing, actually working in a salon, and having my own salon and everything like that became too much to then also go home and ship out products. Right now, I'm at a place where I do have a team, and I am so excited to let you all know that I am relaunching my products this fall. But before that, we're doing a little pre-sale. We're doing a little soft launch before the big launch, and I want all of you to have an equal opportunity to get some products in your hand. We are going to limit these products to around 100 products. You want to act fast. You want to go down into the description right now. Click on the link that I have there in order for you to sign up for our email list. And as soon as we are dropping them 100 products, you will be able to go online and shop. Now, you will only have 24 hours to shop. You want to make sure that you sign up on that link so that you can get that notification when the site is live. Now, this is a very exclusive announcement that I'm giving to my YouTube. Instagram and everybody else is not going to know. So this is a very exclusive opportunity for those of you who watch my YouTube videos to go and sign up. I will also have a video coming soon about those products and kind of detailing the properties of them and how you can use them on your loose hair and your locks. But in the meantime, go sign up right now, y'all. In a couple weeks, don't be hitting me up like, oh, I missed it, do you got extra? Because I'm not going to have it. Okay, 100 products, and when they are gone, they are gone for. If you want to get your fix for the summer, go ahead and sign up in that link below.